This is the High Voltage Business Builders Podcast, daily intelligence for serious e-commerce portfolio builders across Amazon, TikTok Shop, Shopify, Walmart, and every channel that moves the needle. Neil Twa and his Voltage team all day, every day since 2012. Let's get into it.
Your Amazon listing just got flagged in Germany. Not because of a bad review, not because of a pricing error, because you don't have a responsible person on file in the European Union, and under the revised General Product Safety Regulation, that's enough to get you delisted. This isn't a future threat. The GPSR went into effect in December 2024. If you're selling into the EU right now on Amazon, Etsy, or eBay, this regulation applies to you. It doesn't matter where your business is based. It doesn't matter if you're doing $5,000 a month or $5 million a month. If your product reaches an EU buyer, you are in scope. Here's what makes this different from the usual compliance noise. Marketplaces are the enforcement arm. Amazon, Etsy, and eBay are required to verify your listings and remove products that don't meet the new requirements. They don't wait for a government agency to act. They act themselves. That means the risk isn't a fine you might get someday. It's a delisting that happens this week. For a seller doing $10,000 a month with 2 or 3 EU-facing SKUs, losing access to that market could mean losing 15 to 20% of revenue overnight. For a larger operator running a catalog of 50 or 100 SKUs across multiple European marketplaces, the exposure is compounding. The sellers who are going to come out of this ahead are the ones who treat it the same way they treat inventory planning, proactively, with a system, not reactively when the listing disappears. So what exactly does the GPSR require? And more importantly, what do you do about it this week? The core of the GPSR comes down to 3 things: a responsible person, documentation, and listing compliance. Let's break each one down in plain terms. First, the responsible person. If you're a US-based seller or any non-EU seller, you cannot sell into the EU without designating an EU-based entity who is legally accountable for your product's safety compliance. This could be an importer, an authorized representative, a fulfillment provider, or a distributor who is physically located in the EU. They have to be real, reachable, and named on your listing. Think of it like having a registered agent for your LLC, except this one has to be in Europe and has to be tied to every product you sell there. Second, documentation. You are required to maintain safety records for up to 10 years. That includes technical files, safety assessments, and any documentation that proves your product meets applicable safety standards. For a seller doing $20,000 a month with a handful of SKUs, this is manageable, but it requires a system you probably don't have yet. For a mid-level operator running 30 or 40 products, this becomes a real administrative project. Third, listing compliance. Before a buyer clicks purchase, your listing must display the manufacturer's name, the responsible person's contact details, a product identifier, the intended use, safety warnings, and care instructions, not buried in a PDF, visible on the listing itself. Here's the mechanic that matters most. Amazon, Etsy, and eBay are not passive here. They are actively verifying listings and removing products that don't meet these requirements. The enforcement is at the platform level, which means it's faster and more certain than government enforcement. Your listing is the compliance checkpoint. This is a structural change to how you operate in Europe, not a form you fill out once. Let me give you 2 real scenarios that show how this plays out at different scales. First, a seller doing around $30,000 a month in revenue, split between the US and Germany. She sells a line of children's kitchen tools, cutting boards, peelers, kid-safe knives. 3 SKUs on Amazon D, representing about $8,000 a month in revenue. When the GPSR went into effect in December 2024, her listings were missing the responsible person designation entirely. Amazon flagged them. Within days, 2 of her 3 listings were suppressed. She didn't know the regulation existed. She found out when her German sales dropped to 0. What she did, she found a compliance services firm in Berlin. There are several that specialize in exactly this, and designated them as her responsible person for a flat annual fee. She updated her listings with the required safety information, uploaded her documentation, and was back live within 3 weeks. Total cost to get compliant, under $2,000 for the year. Revenue recovered, $8,000 a month. That math is not complicated. Second scenario, a larger operator running 80 SKUs across Amazon UK, Germany, France, and the Netherlands, doing roughly $200,000 a month in European revenue. They had VAT compliance already handled through a third-party service. They assumed GPSR was covered. It wasn't. Their compliance team did an audit and found 41 SKUs with incomplete listing data, missing manufacturer names, missing safety warnings. They built a remediation process, updated listings in batches, and used their existing EU logistics partner as the responsible person across all markets. Same regulation, very different operational lift. Both sellers fixed it. The ones who didn't move fast lost revenue they didn't recover. This is what sellers who survive platform changes do differently. They treat compliance as a business system, not a paperwork problem. 3 moves. Do these in order. Move 1. Audit your EU-facing listings this week. Go into your Amazon Seller Central, your Etsy shop, or your eBay account and identify every product that ships to or is listed in an EU marketplace. Pull the list. Note which ones have a responsible person designated, which ones have safety warnings visible on the listing, and which ones have manufacturer information displayed. If you don't know what you have, you can't fix it. This audit takes a few hours for a small catalog. For a larger catalog, block a full day. Do it anyway. A seller doing $5,000 a month with 2 EU SKUs can complete this in an afternoon. A seller running 50 SKUs needs a spreadsheet and a process. The scale is different. The urgency is the same. Move 2. Designate a responsible person. If you don't have an EU-based entity who can serve in this role, find one. There are compliance firms in Germany, the Netherlands, and Ireland that offer responsible person services specifically for non-EU sellers. Costs vary, but for a small catalog, you are looking at a few hundred to a couple $1,000s annually. This is not optional. It is a hard requirement. Without it, your listings are at risk of suppression, regardless of how good your product is. Move 3. Build your documentation file. For each product you sell into the EU, create a folder, physical or digital, that contains your safety assessments, technical specifications, any certifications, and your compliance records. The GPSR requires you to hold these for up to 10 years. Set this up now while you're building the system, not after an audit forces your hand. 1 audit, 1 responsible person. 1 documentation file per SKU. That's the whole system. The sellers who get hurt by regulatory changes like the GPSR are not the ones who couldn't figure it out. They're the ones who assumed it didn't apply to them, or assumed someone else was handling it, or put it on the list for later. Later already passed. December 2024 already happened. If you're just getting started selling into Europe, or evaluating whether it's worth it, this is the kind of operational reality you need to understand before you go in, not after your listings go dark. The compliance cost is real, but manageable. The revenue opportunity in the EU is real and significant. The sellers who build the compliance infrastructure first are the ones who can scale into that market without interruption. If you're already operating in Europe and you haven't done the audit I described in the takeaway segment, that's your next move, not next quarter. This week, at Voltage, we've been helping sellers build businesses that last, not just launch and scramble, for over 13 years. We've seen every version of this: VAT compliance surprises, marketplace policy shifts, supply chain disruptions, regulatory changes that came out of nowhere and took sellers off the board. The operators who survive and grow are the ones who treat their business like a business, with systems, documentation, and proactive decision-making. If you want to understand how to build that kind of operation, visit voltagedm.com. Talk to someone who has actually run this at scale. Not a consultant who read about it, an operator who has lived it. You're listening to the High Voltage Business Builders podcast. Build it right. Build it to last. That's a wrap on today's episode. If you're trying to figure out where AI actually fits in your business and where to invest before bolting it on top, head over to voltagedm.com/AI quiz. 5 questions, 60 seconds, a personalized AI readiness score, and an instant foundation gap report. Built for operators, not AI tourists. We'll be back tomorrow with another edge. Until then, stay high voltage.